She found him dying in a hall of stone and fire, clutching two newborn pups like they were the only thing tethering him to life. He was bleeding out, and when she stepped closer, his golden eyes fixed on her with the intensity of a predator deciding whether to kill or be killed. Thalia Corey had been invisible her entire life, until the moment she chose not to run. The freezing rain had been hammering the stone citadel of Lycaon for 6 hours straight, the kind of winter storm that turned castle corridors into wind tunnels and made torches flicker like dying heartbeats. Thalia Corey wrapped her threadbare shawl tighter around her shoulders, her breath misting in the cold air of the servants' passage. The stone floor bit through her worn shoes with every step. She'd been scrubbing blood from the training yard since dawn. Real blood. Not the training kind. 3 warriors had died in yesterday's border skirmish with the Northmark rogues. She'd wrung pink water from rags for hours, her hands raw and cracked, while the council met in chambers above to discuss things she would never be allowed to hear. The basket of soiled linens she carried now weighed more than it should. Her arms trembled. Her stomach had been empty since the half portion of bread she'd been given that morning, saved from yesterday because there hadn't been enough today. Just get to the washing house, she told herself. Drop the basket. Find somewhere warm to sleep. Don't think about tomorrow. Tomorrow meant more floors, more blood, more being looked through like she was made of glass. Thalia had been rejected by her birth pack at 14. Her wolf was too weak, they said. Defective. The Eduron Pack Council had declared her unfit for mating, unfit for combat, unfit for anything except exile. Her family had been given a choice: abandon her or leave with her. They left her. She'd survived 2 years as a rogue before Lycaon's border patrol found her half dead in the snow. They brought her to the citadel not out of mercy, but because they needed someone to clean the blood the warriors left behind. Someone expendable. Someone who wouldn't be missed if she disappeared. She was 20 now. She couldn't remember the last time someone had looked her in the eye. The Great Hall shortcut would save her 10 minutes. She wasn't supposed to use it. Servants were meant to stay in the passages, but it was midnight and the hall would be empty. The warriors would be in the barracks, the council in their beds. The Alpha King. Thalia didn't think about the Alpha King. No one saw him except during formal addresses. Actorion Draconis was a name whispered in fear, a shadow that ruled from behind closed doors, a wolf so powerful that even his own generals flinched in his presence. She pushed open the servants' door to the great hall. The silence hit her first. Not the normal silence of an empty room, but the wrong kind, the suffocating kind. The kind that made her wolf, small and broken as it was, whimper in the back of her mind. The hall stretched before her like the throat of some ancient beast. Stone pillars rose to a vaulted ceiling lost in shadow. Fire torches blazed in their iron sconces, casting everything in violent orange and black. The throne sat empty at the far end, carved from a single piece of black granite. Crowned with iron wolf skulls. Thalia's footsteps echoed as she crossed toward the opposite door. The basket felt heavier. Her breathing sounded too loud. Then she heard it. Not footsteps, not wind, not the crackle of flame. Crying, soft, desperate, the hiccuping wail of an infant. No, 2 infants. Thalia stopped dead. The basket slipped from her numb fingers and hit the stone floor with a muffled thud. Laundry spilled across the ground. She didn't notice. There are no children in the citadel. There haven't been births here in years. The crying came from the left side of the hall, near the 4th pillar. The shadows there were deeper, the torchlight weaker. "Hello?" Her voice came out smaller than she intended, swallowed by the vast space. "Is someone—" The crying intensified, terrified, abandoned. Thalia's feet moved before her brain could stop them. Every instinct screamed danger, but something deeper, something primal and aching, pulled her forward. She rounded the pillar and froze. A man sat slumped against the stone column, his massive frame half collapsed, one shoulder against the pillar, legs splayed. He wore black armor, cracked across the chest, split at the shoulders, decorated with wolf insignias she didn't recognize. His arms, thick with muscle and covered in tribal tattoos, were crossed over his chest. Cradled in those arms were two tiny bundles wrapped in blood-stained linen, but it was the arrows that made her stomach drop. 6 of them, 3 in his left shoulder, 1 through his right bicep, 2 embedded in his ribs, just below the armor's edge. The shafts were black wood, fletched with red feathers. Blood ran in slow rivers down his chest, pooling on the stone beneath him. His head hung forward, braided hair dark and matted with gore, obscuring his face. But she could see the tattoos on his skin, ancient pack marks, battle scars, symbols she'd only seen in old texts. The pups in his arms cried weakly, their small voices raw and desperate. Thalia's heart hammered against her ribs. Her hands shook. He's dying. He's dying, and those babies. She took one step forward, his head snapped up. Golden eyes, fierce, feral, fading, locked onto hers with the intensity of a wolf deciding whether to kill or be killed. His lips pulled back, revealing elongated canines. Blood stained his mouth. "If you scream." His voice was a ruined rasp, barely human. "We all die." Thalia should have run. Every survival instinct she'd honed over 6 years of being prey screamed at her to run. Instead, she dropped to her knees in front of him, hands reaching out, and whispered, "Give me the pups." For 3 heartbeats, he didn't move. His golden eyes searched her face, like he was trying to decide if she was real or a hallucination brought on by blood loss. The pups wailed louder, their cries echoing off stone walls that had witnessed 1,000 deaths. "You don't know what you're asking." Each word cost him. Blood bubbled at the corner of his mouth. "I know they'll die if you hold them much longer." Thalia kept her voice steady, even though her entire body trembled. "Your arms are going numb. You can barely feel them anymore. Give them to me before you drop them." Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe. Or recognition that she was right. His arms shifted with agonizing slowness. The movement made him gasp, fresh blood seeping around the arrow shafts. He extended the bundles toward her with shaking hands. Thalia took the first pup, then the second, cradling them against her chest. They were so small, too small. Newborns, hours old at most. Their skin was warm, but their cries were weakening. Hypothermia was setting in. She tucked them inside her shawl against her body heat and looked back at the dying warrior. Up close, she could see the extent of the damage. The arrows weren't just embedded. They were barbed, designed to shred flesh on the way out. The black wood meant they were ceremonial. Execution arrows. The red fletching was royal marker. Someone had tried to execute this man with formal kill shots. "Who did this to you?" The question left her mouth before she could stop it. He laughed. It was a wet, broken sound. "My own counsel." He coughed, spattering blood across the stone. "6 generals I trusted with my life. They waited until another cough, until she gave birth, until the heirs existed. Then they struck. Heirs. The word hit Thalia like a physical blow. She looked down at the pups nestled against her chest, then back at the man. Really looked at him this time. Past the blood and the braids and the fading light in his eyes. The jaw was too strong, the bone structure too refined. The tattoos weren't just battle marks. They were royal bloodline sigils. And there, half hidden beneath gore and torn leather, was the insignia on his chest plate. The wolf crown of Lycaon. Her voice died in her throat. Actorion Draconis. He said it like a confession. Alpha King of Lycaon, father to the pups you're holding, and currently dying on my own throne room floor because I was stupid enough to believe loyalty still meant something. The hall spun. Thalia's vision blurred at the edges. She was touching the Alpha King. She was holding the royal heirs. She was kneeling in the blood of the most powerful wolf in the north. She was going to be executed for this. You need to leave, Actorion's voice dragged her back. Take the pups. There's a servant's passage behind the third tapestry on the east wall. It leads to the lower kitchens. From there you can reach. I'm not leaving you here to die. I'm already dead. He gestured weakly at the arrows. Bloodthorn tipped. Even if you pulled them out, the poison is in my system. I have minutes, maybe less. Then we don't have time to argue. Thalia shifted the pups to one arm, ignoring their renewed crying, and reached for the first arrow in his shoulder. His hand shot out, catching her wrist with surprising strength. Don't. The barbs will tear through muscle. I'll bleed out faster. You'll bleed out anyway if we stay here. She met his eyes. I've pulled arrows before, from wounded rogues during my exile. I'm not trained, but I'm not useless. Something changed in his expression. The feral intensity softened, just slightly. What's your name? Thalia Corey. Thalia. He tested the name like he was committing it to memory. Why are you helping me? Because those pups are crying and you're dying and I'm the only one here. She pulled her wrist free. Now hold still. She didn't give him time to argue. Her fingers wrapped around the first arrow shaft, just below the fletching. The wood was slick with blood. She counted to 3 in her head, then pulled. Actorion didn't scream. He didn't make a sound. But his entire body went rigid, muscles locked, jaw clenched so hard she heard teeth crack. Blood gushed from the wound, hot and thick. Thalia dropped the arrow and pressed her palm against the hole, applying pressure. The bleeding slowed, but didn't stop. She needed cloth, bandages, something. Her shawl. She unwrapped it from around the pups, folded it quickly, and pressed it against his shoulder. Hold this. Press hard. His hand replaced hers, trembling but firm. She reached for the second arrow. That's when she heard the footsteps. Not one set. Multiple. Boots on stone, moving fast. Accompanied by the metallic clink of armor and weapons. Find them, the voice echoed through the hall, cold and commanding. The traitor king cannot leave this citadel alive, and if he's hidden the whelps, burn every room until we find them. Thalia's blood turned to ice. Actorion's eyes met hers. Go. Now. Not without you. I can't walk. I can barely breathe. You take the pups and... I'm not debating this. Thalia grabbed his arm, the one without arrows, and pulled. Stand up or I'll drag you. You can't possibly. She yanked harder. Her muscles screamed in protest, but adrenaline made her stronger than she'd ever been. Stand. Up. Maybe it was the command in her voice. Maybe it was the shock of an Omega ordering an Alpha King. Maybe it was simply the will to live. Actorion stood. It took everything he had. She could see it in the way his legs shook, the way his breathing turned ragged, the way his free hand clutched at the pillar for support. But he stood. The footsteps were getting closer. Torchlight flickered at the far end of the hall. "Third tapestry," Actorion gasped. "East wall." Thalia wrapped his arm around her shoulders, taking as much of his weight as she could. The pups were crushed between them, still crying, still alive. She half carried, half dragged him across the hall, every step an eternity. The tapestry was heavy, woven with scenes of ancient wolf battles. She pulled it aside with one hand, revealing a narrow door built into the stone. No handle, just a small indentation where fingers could grip. She wedged her fingers into the gap and pulled. The door swung open on silent hinges, revealing darkness and the smell of old stone. A servant's passage, just like he'd said. Inside, now. She pushed him through first, then followed, pulling the tapestry back into place as the door closed behind them. The darkness was absolute. No torches here, just cold air and the sound of Actorion's laboured breathing. Thalia pressed her back against the door, listening. The footsteps entered the great hall. 6 sets, maybe 7. They moved with military precision, spreading out, searching. "Blood trail leads here, Commander Kairos." A younger voice, uncertain. "Then where is he?" The cold voice from before. Commander Kairos, one of the 6 who betrayed him. "Could be hiding behind the pillars. Search them, all of them, and check the tapestries. The coward might have crawled into a passage like the rat he is." Thalea's heart stopped. In the darkness beside her, Actorion made a sound. Not a groan, something worse, the wet, rattling gasp of lungs filling with blood. He was dying. She fumbled in the dark, found his hand, squeezed it. He squeezed back, once, weakly. The pups had gone quiet. Too quiet. Cold was setting in fast. Footsteps approached the tapestry. Close enough that she could hear leather creaking, metal scraping. The tapestry moved. Thalia held her breath. "This one's clear, Commander. Check the others." The footsteps moved away. Thalia didn't move, didn't breathe, counted to 100 in her head before she finally exhaled. When she was sure they'd moved to the far end of the hall, she whispered, "Can you walk?" No answer. "Actorion?" She reached out in the darkness, found his face. His skin was cold. Too cold. But there was breath, faint and shallow, against her palm, still alive, barely. She adjusted her grip on the pups, made sure they were secure, then grabbed his arm and pulled him deeper into the passage. She couldn't see where she was going, couldn't see anything. She just walked, one hand on the wall, dragging a dying king and carrying newborn heirs through darkness that smelled like centuries of secrets. Behind them, she heard Commander Kairos give an order. "Seal the Great Hall. Post guards at every exit. If they're still in this citadel, they won't get far. And when we find them," a pause. "Kill the Omega. She's seen too much. But bring me the whelps alive. The Council has plans for them." Thalia kept walking. Her old life, the invisible life of a rejected Omega who scrubbed blood from floors, was gone. She'd made her choice the moment she knelt in front of a dying stranger and asked for his children. Now she just had to survive long enough to understand what that choice meant. The servants' passage was a tomb of cold stone and older darkness. Thalia's lungs burned as she dragged Actorian deeper into the tunnel, one hand pressed against the damp wall for guidance, the other clutching the pups against her chest. His weight threatened to pull her down with every step. Behind them, the sounds of the search party faded, but she didn't stop moving. The pups had started crying again. Weak, mewling sounds that tore at something primal inside her. They were too cold, too exposed. She needed to find shelter, warmth, something. Actorian's breathing had gone from labored to liquid. Each inhale rattled in his chest, like stones shaking in a jar. The arrows were still embedded in his flesh. She'd only managed to remove one before the guards arrived. The other 5 were slowly killing him. "How far?" she gasped, adjusting her grip on his arm. 50 paces. His voice was barely a whisper. "There's a grate. Opens to storage cellars. You can hide there." "We can hide there." "I won't make it that far." "You don't get to decide that." Thalia pulled harder, ignoring the way her shoulders screamed in protest. "I didn't drag you this far to let you die in a tunnel." He made a sound that might have been a laugh or a death rattle. "Stubborn Omega. Dying king." They moved in silence after that, counting steps in the dark. At 43, Thalea's foot hit something metal. She knelt, running her free hand across the floor until she found it. A grate, just like he'd said. Iron bars set into stone, covering an opening that dropped into darkness. She set the pups down carefully, tucking them against the wall where they wouldn't roll, then grabbed the grate with both hands and pulled. It didn't budge. Rusted shut or locked, she couldn't tell. "There's a lever." Actorian slumped against the wall beside her. "Left side. Push down." She found it. A metal rod, cold and slick. She pushed with everything she had. The lever groaned, resisted, then gave way with a metallic shriek that echoed through the passage. The grate swung open. Below was a ladder, old wood rungs descending into what smelled like dust and forgotten supplies. She grabbed the pups first, securing them inside her dress, then turned to Actorian. "Can you climb?" "No." "Then I'll lower you." "That's impossible." "I weigh twice what you do." "I've carried warriors off battlefields before." She lied through her teeth. "You're not special." That got another broken laugh from him. "You're a terrible liar, Thalia Corey." "Good thing I'm better at not letting people die." She positioned herself behind him, wrapped her arms under his shoulders, and began lowering him through the opening. Her muscles screamed. Her spine felt like it would snap. But she held on, feeding him down inch by agonizing inch until his feet found the first rung. He took his own weight for a moment, enough for her to reposition, then began a slow, agonizing descent. She followed, pulling the grate closed behind them. The cellar was larger than she expected. Stone walls lined with rotting shelves, broken crates stacked in corners, and in the far wall, a narrow window grate that let in a sliver of moonlight. Not much, but enough to see by. Actorion collapsed the moment he reached the floor. The fall was controlled, deliberate, like he'd been holding on just long enough to get here. Blood pooled beneath him, black in the dim light. Thalia laid the pups on a relatively clean section of floor, then turned her attention to the dying king. 5 arrows still jutted from his body. The wounds around them were swollen, dark veins spreading outward like cracks in glass. Bloodthorn poison. She'd heard of it, never seen it. It paralyzed first, then stopped the heart. The fact that he was still conscious meant the dose was either low or his wolf was fighting it with everything it had. "I need light," she said, "and clean water, and cloth. Shelf behind you, left side. Should be old supply crates." She found them. One crate held candles, another flint and steel, a third contained what looked like medical supplies from decades ago. Bandages gone yellow with age, glass vials of tinctures she didn't recognize, a bone saw that made her stomach turn. And at the bottom, wrapped in oilcloth, a leather pouch. She opened it. Inside were dried herbs: moon blossom, lichen sage, silver leaf, and something else she recognized from her grandmother's teachings. Helicon root. Rare, powerful, and illegal to possess outside the old bloodlines. "Why do you have helicon root in a storage cellar?" She turned to face him. Actorian's eyes had closed. For a terrifying moment she thought he'd died. Then his chest moved, shallow but steady. "Old supplies. From before the purge." His words came slow, slurred. "When Helicon wolves still served the crown. Before they were hunted. Before they were declared too dangerous to exist." Thalia crushed the herbs between her palms, mixing them with water from a clay jug she found tucked in the corner. The paste smelled sharp, medicinal. Her grandmother had taught her this. Years ago, when Thalia was still a child who believed she had a future. "This will hurt," she warned. "Everything hurts." She pulled the first arrow. This time he did scream, a raw animal sound that echoed off stone walls. Blood gushed from the wound. She packed it with the herb paste, pressing hard, whispering the old words her grandmother had taught her. Not a prayer. Something older. A command to the blood to stop, to the flesh to hold, to the wolf inside to fight. The bleeding slowed. She pulled the second arrow, then the third. By the fourth, Actorion had passed out, which was a mercy. The fifth arrow was the deepest, embedded between his ribs, close to his heart. She had to dig the barbed tip out with her fingers, feeling blindly for the angle that would do the least damage. When it finally came free, she thought she'd killed him. His chest went still. No breath, no movement. "No." She pressed both hands against his chest, over his heart, and pushed. Once. Twice. "You don't get to die. Not after everything. Not after I've gotten this far." His body jerked, a gasping inhale. His eyes flew open, wild and unfocused. "Breathe," she commanded. "Just breathe." He did, ragged and painful, but breathing. Thalia sat back, hands shaking, covered in blood that wasn't hers. The pups were crying again. She'd almost forgotten them. She cleaned her hands as best she could on her ruined dress, then gathered them up, holding them close. They were so small, fragile, completely dependent on two people who were both barely surviving. "Tell me about them," she said quietly. "The pups. What are their names?" Actorian's eyes found hers in the moonlight. "They don't have names yet. In Lycaon tradition, heirs aren't named until the full moon after their birth. 3 days from now." He paused, struggling for breath. "If they survive that long." "They'll survive." "You sound certain." "I have to be. No one else is." She looked down at the tiny faces, their eyes still closed, their skin almost translucent in the dim light. "Why does the council want them dead? They're just babies." "Because they exist." Actorian pushed himself up slightly, wincing at the movement. "My mate, Erythia, Was told she could never bear children. A seer confirmed it. The council built their entire succession plan around that fact. I was to rule until death, then they would select the next alpha from among the generals. But she got pregnant. Against all prophecy, against all possibility. His voice dropped. The council claimed it was unnatural, that the pups were cursed. They demanded I execute Erythia before the birth. Thalia's blood went cold. You refused? Of course I refused. She was my mate, the mother of my children. He closed his eyes. 3 nights ago she went into labor. I locked down the royal wing, allowed only trusted physicians inside. The birth was difficult. She was dying, but she brought them into the world. He gestured weakly at the pups. Twin sons. Perfect. Healthy. Crying. Where is she now? Silence stretched between them, heavy and terrible. I don't know. Actorian's voice broke. After the birth, I held the pups, while the physicians tended to her. I turned my back for one moment. When I looked again, she was gone. No blood trail, no sign of struggle. Just gone. And then the generals came, with execution arrows, with orders to kill the heirs and anyone who tried to protect them. They took her. Or she left. He met her eyes. I don't know which is worse. Before Thalia could respond, moonlight from the window grate shifted, falling directly across the pups in her arms. They began to glow. Not a trick of light. Actual luminescence, pale silver blue, spreading across their skin like ink in water. Thalia nearly dropped them in shock. What is this? Her voice pitched high with panic. What's happening to them? Actorion pulled himself forward, ignoring the pain, his eyes wide. The prophecy. The marks. I'd heard stories, but I never thought. The glow intensified. Lines appeared on the pup's skin, intricate and deliberate. Not random patterns, but images, scenes. On the first pup's chest, a throne room burning, wolves fighting in the shadows. On the second, a woman with long hair standing before a king, light pouring from her raised hands. And on both their forearms, clear as carved stone, a woman's face. Red-brown hair, wide eyes, delicate features, Thalia's face. No, she shook her head. No, that's impossible. I'm no one. I'm a rejected Omega. I don't have power. I don't have your bloodline. Actorion's voice cut through her panic. Tell me about your family, your grandmother, Giz. Where did she come from? I don't know. She died when I was 12. She never talked about her past. What did she teach you? Herbs. Healing. Old songs in a language I didn't understand. Thalia's mind raced. She told me our family had to hide, that if anyone knew what we were, they'd kill us. But she died before she could explain. Helicon. Actorion said it like a curse and a prayer. Your Helicon bloodline, the last of them. I don't know what that means. It means you're descended from the most powerful female wolves in history. The Helicon pack ruled the north before Lycaon existed. Their women could heal with touch, command wolves with their voices, and see the threads of fate before they were woven. He gestured at the glowing marks. It means the prophecy chose you, not Erythia, not any noble-born Omega. You. The marks on the pup's skin pulsed once, then faded, leaving only faint silver lines that looked like old scars. Thalia stared at them, then at Actorion, then back at the pups. I was rejected, declared defective. How can I be what you're describing? Because they sealed your wolf. He struggled to sit up fully. Helican power was too dangerous. The old kings hunted them, killed most of them, and placed binding seals on the survivors. Your wolf isn't weak. It's caged. By who? Likely your own family to protect you. A sealed wolf appears defective to any council examination. They would have rejected you on sight, which kept you alive. He reached out, his bloody hand hovering near her face. But the seal doesn't change what you are. What you were born to be. And what's that? The lunar these pups need to survive. Before Thalia could respond, footsteps echoed above them. Multiple sets, moving fast, voices filtered through the ceiling. Blood trail goes cold here, Commander. Then search every room, every passage. Tear this citadel apart stone by stone if you have to. Thalia and Actorion locked eyes. They'll find us, she whispered. Not if we move now. He tried to stand, failed, tried again. This time he made it to his feet, swaying but upright. There's a chapel, through the east tunnel. It's been abandoned for decades. They won't think to search it. Can you walk that far? I don't have a choice. She handed him one of the pups, keeping the other secured against her chest. They moved together through another passage, this one narrower. The ceiling so low Actorion had to duck. The pup in his arms had gone quiet, nestled against his blood-stained armor like it belonged there. The tunnel opened into a circular room, an old chapel, just like he'd said. Stone altar at the center, broken pews scattered like bones, and on the far wall, a portrait. Large, ornate, painted with skill that suggested royal commission. A woman stood in the frame, beautiful and cold. Black hair, pale skin, ice-blue eyes. She wore the lunar's crown, silver with moonstone inlay. At her feet sat two wolf pups, pure black, eyes already open. Erythia, Actorion said quietly, painted 2 years ago, when we were first mated. Thalia stared at the portrait, then down at the pups in their arms. Neither had black fur. Both had russet-brown coats starting to show through infant skin. And neither had the ice-blue eyes of the woman in the painting. They don't look like her, Thalia said slowly. No. Actorion's voice was hollow. They don't. Before she could ask what that meant, the pup in her arms made a sound. Not a cry. Something worse. A choking, gasping wheeze. She looked down. The pup's lips had turned blue. Its tiny chest barely moved. Something's wrong. Panic clawed up her throat. It's not breathing right. Neither of them are. Actorion checked the pup in his arms. Same symptoms. The cold, the stress. They were born too early. Their lungs aren't strong enough. There has to be something. Thalia laid the pup on the altar, pressing her ear to its chest. The heartbeat was there, but fading. Your wolf. Can you share your strength with them? I tried. In the hall. It didn't work. They're too young. They can't access their wolves yet. The second pup stopped breathing entirely. Thalia's world narrowed to 2 tiny bodies, 2 fading heartbeats, 2 lives that had barely begun. No, she wouldn't let this happen. Couldn't. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory, old words in that ancient language, words she'd never understood but had memorized anyway, because her grandmother made her repeat them every night before sleep. Helican words, healing words. She placed both hands on the pups' chests, one on each, and closed her eyes. The words came without thought, flowing from some deep place she didn't know existed. As she spoke, warmth spread through her palms. Not heat. Something else. Something alive. The air around them shimmered. Her hands began to glow the same silver blue as the prophecy marks. The light spread, flowing into the pups, filling them, rewriting something fundamental in their tiny bodies. Both pups gasped, simultaneous, sharp. Their chests expanded, colour returned to their skin. Their cries, weak but real, filled the chapel. Thalia collapsed against the altar, suddenly exhausted. Her hands shook, her vision blurred. Actorion caught her before she fell. "What did you do?" "I don't know." She stared at her hands. The glow was fading, but she could still feel it, buzzing under her skin. "My grandmother's words. They just came out." "Helicon healing." He held her steady. "You brought them back from the edge of death." "I didn't do anything, I just spoke." "You wielded power that hasn't been seen in this realm for 200 years. He turned her to face him, his golden eyes intense despite the blood loss and exhaustion. "Do you understand what this means? You're not just Helicon bloodline. You're an active Helicon healer. The prophecy didn't just name you, it awakened you." The chapel door exploded inward. 6 guards poured through, weapons drawn, led by a tall man with silver streaked through his dark hair. Commander Kairos. His eyes swept the chapel, landing on Actorion, then Thalia, then the pups on the altar. "There you are." His voice was silk over steel. "The traitor king and his little Omega savior. How touching." Actorion stepped in front of Thalia, one arm extended protectively. "Stand down, Kairos. This is treason." Treason is harboring cursed spawn and allowing a forbidden bloodline to live. Kairos gestured at Thalia. "Did you think we wouldn't recognize Helicon power when we saw it? The glow gave you away, girl. Just like it gave away your grandmother before we burned her pack to ash." Thalia's world tilted. "What?" "Your family didn't die in a rogue attack. We executed them. All of them. Except you, apparently. Someone got sloppy." He smiled. "We'll correct that mistake now." 3 guards moved toward her. Actorion tried to intercept them. He managed to take down one before his injuries betrayed him. He dropped to one knee, coughing blood. The remaining guards seized Thalia, ripping her away from the altar. She fought, clawing and kicking, but they were trained warriors, and she was an Omega who'd never been taught to fight. One guard grabbed her by the hair, forcing her to her knees. "The Omega dies," Kairos announced. "But we take the whelps alive. The Council wants them. Something about using their prophecy blood to strengthen the seal on any remaining Helicon survivors." "You won't touch them." Thalia's voice came out stronger than she felt. "You're not in a position to make demands." Kairos drew his blade, examining the edge. "Any last words?" She had many, but before she could speak them, one of the guards, younger than the others with a scar across his jaw, stepped forward. "Commander, a word." Kairos turned, irritated. "What is it, Demonios?" The guard, Demonios, looked at Thalia. Something flickered in his expression. Recognition. Memory. "This Omega. I know her." "So?" "She saved my sister. 3 months ago. Mira was dying from poison. The physicians gave up. This girl. She brought herbs, stayed with her through the night, pulled her back from death's door." He met Kiros's eyes. "I owe her a life debt. Your personal debts are irrelevant to the Council's orders." Then the council can explain to the old laws why I'm breaking them. Demonios drew his sword and turned it on his fellow guards. The chapel erupted into chaos. Demonios took down 2 guards before they realized what was happening. Actorion, using his last reserves of strength, pulled himself up and grabbed a fallen blade. Between them, they fought with desperate efficiency. Thaleia scrambled to the altar, throwing her body over the pups as steel rang against steel. She whispered the healing words again, forming a barrier of light around them. The glow intensified, spreading outward, forcing the guards back. "She's using Helican magic," Kyros shouted. "Kill her now!" One guard broke through, blade raised. Something inside Thaleia snapped, not broke. Snapped open, like a lock releasing, like chains falling away. Her wolf, caged and silent for 20 years, exploded to life. The transformation was instant and agonizing. Her bones realigned, her skin split and reformed. Her vision sharpened until she could see every grain of dust in the air. And then she was standing on 4 legs, massive and terrible, silver-white fur marked with glowing Helican runes. She was larger than any wolf present, larger than should be possible. The guard who'd been about to strike her stumbled back, eyes wide with terror. Thaleia lunged. She didn't think, didn't plan, just moved on instinct, taking the guard down with one swipe of her claws. Blood sprayed across ancient stone. The other guards hesitated, uncertain whether to advance or retreat. Kyros made the decision for them. "Fall back. Regroup in the corridor." They fled. Demonios started to follow, then stopped, looking back at Thaleia, at Actorion, at the pups. "I'll hold the passage," he said. "Buy you time, but you need to move. Now." Actorion nodded once. "Your debt is paid, Demonios. And then some." The guard smiled, grim and accepting. "Tell Mira I kept my honor." He turned and disappeared into the passage. Moments later, they heard fighting, steel on steel, shouting. A scream cut short. Thaleia shifted back to human form, the transformation leaving her naked and shaking. She grabbed a torn tapestry from the wall, wrapped it around herself, and gathered the pups. Actorion could barely stand. The fighting had reopened every wound. Blood ran freely down his armor. "Can you make it?" she asked. "Do I have a choice?" "No." They stumbled through a side passage, Thaleia supporting Actorion with one arm, clutching the pups with the other. Behind them, the sounds of fighting faded, then stopped. Silence. They emerged into another corridor. This one led upward, toward the main levels of the citadel. Torchlight flickered ahead. Voices echoed. Too many to count. They were trapped. "The throne room," Actorion gasped. "If we can reach it, I can call the remaining loyal guards. Not everyone supports Kyros. And if they don't come, then we die in front of witnesses, better than bleeding out in a tunnel." They climbed. Each step was agony. Thaleia's legs shook. Her vision tunneled. The pups had gone quiet again, pressed against her chest, their tiny hearts beating against her skin. The throne room doors stood open. Inside, torches blazed in their sconces, illuminating the massive space. And in the center, standing before the black granite throne, was a woman. She wore white robes, pristine despite the chaos. Her black hair fell in perfect waves down her back. Her ice-blue eyes fixed on them with something between amusement and contempt. Erythea, the dead lunar, very much alive. "Hello, Actorion." Her voice was honey and poison. "Did you miss me?" The lunar, who was supposed to be dead, descended the throne steps with the grace of someone who'd never fled for her life, never bled, never known terror. 30 armed guards lined the walls, their armor bearing her personal sigil. Not Lycaon wolves, mercenaries from the southern territories. Thalia felt Actorian's entire body go rigid beside her. Erythia, his voice was hollow. You're alive. Did you think I'd let myself be trapped in that breeding room while you played king? She stopped 3 paces away, examining him like he was something distasteful. Did you think I'd give birth to your heirs and fade into obscurity? I thought you were taken. I thought Kyros works for me. She smiled. He has for months, ever since I realized you would never give me what I deserved. I gave you everything, the lunar crown, position, power. Power, Erythia spat the word. You gave me a pretty title and a cage. Every decision passed through the council. Every law, every treaty, every breath I took was scrutinized by old men who saw me as your breeding stock. Her eyes flicked to the pups in Thalia's arms. And when I couldn't produce heirs, they suggested you take a second mate. Cast me aside for someone more fertile. I refused that proposal. I stood with you. You stood with your pride. Her voice turned cold. The great Actorion Draconis, who would never admit his mate was barren. So I made a choice. I found a seer, a real one, not the council's puppet. She told me the truth. Actorion's face paled. What truth? That I could bear children, but not yours. She gestured at the pups. Those are my sons, my blood, my claim to this throne, but their father is someone worthy, someone who understood what I could become. Who? The word came out broken. Does it matter? Erythia shrugged. He's dead now. Served his purpose. The pups have royal blood through me. That's all the council needs to legitimize them. Thalea's mind reeled. The pups weren't Actorians. The prophecy marks, the attempted execution, all of it based on children who weren't even his. Then why try to kill me? Actorion's voice shook. If the pups aren't mine, I'm no threat to your succession. Because you would have fought it, rallied the loyal packs, started a war that would have destroyed everything I built. Erythia tilted her head. This way is cleaner. You die a traitor. The pups become orphans. I rule as Lunar Queen Regent until they come of age, and no one questions my authority because the prophecy marks claim them as true heirs. The marks show her. Actorion pointed at Thalea. Not you. The prophecy chose a Helicon Omega over a false Lunar. Erythia's eyes narrowed. Yes, I wondered who you'd found. Didn't expect the last Helicon rat to crawl out of hiding. She gestured to her guards. Take her. And the whelps. 4 guards moved forward. Thalia backed up, clutching the pups tighter. Her wolf stirred inside, awakened and angry, but she was exhausted. The healing had drained her. The transformation had taken more. She didn't know if she could shift again. Don't touch them. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. Or what? Erythia laughed. You'll glare at me? You're a rejected Omega. Defective. Worthless. The only reason you're still breathing is because my idiot guards let you slip past them. I'm Helicon bloodline. The prophecy chose me. The prophecy is a story written by desperate wolves who wanted to believe in something greater than themselves. Erythia descended another step. There is no greater power. There's only strength and weakness. And you, little Omega, are weak. The guards grabbed Thalia's arms. She fought, twisting and kicking, but they were too strong. They ripped the pups from her grasp. No, she screamed, lunging after them. One guard hit her across the face. Her vision exploded into stars. She tasted blood. Through blurred sight, she saw Actorion try to intervene. 3 guards took him down. He fought like a wounded animal, taking 2 with him before exhaustion and injury finally overwhelmed him. They pinned him to the floor, blade to his throat. Erythia took one of the pups from her guard, examining it with clinical detachment. Stronger than I expected. The Helicon's healing must have worked. She looked at Thalea. I should thank you for keeping them alive long enough to be useful. Give them back. Thalea's voice broke. Please, they're just babies. They're weapons, tools. The prophecy marks will cement my rule. Erythia handed the pup back to her guard. Take them to the ritual chamber. Prepare the blood extraction. We'll use their prophetic essence to strengthen the throne's binding wards. That will kill them. Thalea struggled against the hands holding her. You're their mother. How can you— I'm their creator, not their mother. There's a difference. Erythia turned away, bored. Execute the Omega. Make it quick. She's suffered enough. The guards dragged Thalea toward the far wall, where an executioner's block sat, old stone stained with centuries of blood. They forced her to her knees, pressing her head down, exposing her neck. She could see Actorion from this angle. Still pinned, still struggling, his golden eyes locked on hers, desperate, broken, apologizing for a failure that wasn't his to own. The executioner raised his blade. Thalea closed her eyes. Her grandmother's voice whispered in her memory. Not words. A feeling. A truth she'd carried without understanding. You are not weak. You are caged. And cages can be broken. The blade began its descent. Thalea's wolf exploded outward with enough force to shatter the floor beneath her. The transformation was instant, massive, terrible. Silver-white fur blazed with glowing runes that lit the entire throne room. Her size doubled, then tripled, until she stood nearly 8 feet at the shoulder. Ancient Helicon power, 2 centuries sealed, erupted like a dam breaking. The executioner's blade snapped against her back without leaving a mark. She turned her head, fixing him with eyes that glowed pure silver, and snarled. The sound rattled bones, made torches flicker, drove 3 guards to their knees in pure instinctive submission. Erythia's confident expression cracked. What? Thalea lunged, not at Erythia, at the guards holding the pups. She moved faster than anything that size should, crossing the throne room in 3 bounds. Her jaws closed around the first guard's arm, not biting through but forcing him to drop the pup. She caught the tiny bundle gently in her mouth, impossibly careful for a creature of her size, and placed it against the wall. The second guard tried to run. She caught him in 2 steps, slamming him into the ground with one massive paw. The pup tumbled free. She scooped it up with the same gentleness, adding it to its sibling. Then she turned on Erythia. The false lunar stumbled back, fear finally registering on her perfect face. Kill it! Kill the beast! 20 guards rushed forward. Thalea met them head-on. She fought like something out of ancient legend. Claws that could shred armor. Jaws that could snap steel. Speed that made trained warriors look like children. But she didn't kill. Some instinct, some remaining piece of her humanity, held her back from the final blow each time. She disabled, she disarmed, she broke weapons and shattered shields, but she left them breathing. The throne room descended into chaos. Guards fled. Others tried to stand their ground and were thrown aside like toys. In the confusion, Actorian pulled himself free, grabbed a fallen blade, and moved to defend the pups. Erythia backed toward the throne, her eyes wild. "This isn't possible. Helican power was sealed. Destroyed. You shouldn't exist." Thalea shifted mid-stride, returning to human form. Her naked body was covered in blood, none of it hers. She stood between Erythia and the pups, breathing hard, every muscle trembling. "I was sealed to survive." Her voice came out hoarse. "But you made a mistake. You threatened innocent lives, and that broke every cage you ever put on me. You're still just an Omega." Erythia drew a dagger from her robes. "Power doesn't change what you are." "You're right." Thalea stepped forward. "I'm an Omega. Rejected. Broken. Declared worthless by every pack I've ever known." Another step. "But I'm also Helican, and I'm done being invisible." Erythia struck, fast and desperate. The dagger aimed for Thalea's throat. Thalea caught her wrist mid-strike. Her grip was iron, unbreakable. She twisted, forcing Erythia to her knees, the dagger clattering across stone. "I could kill you," Thalea said quietly. "Every instinct is screaming at me to. But I won't, because that would make me like you." She released Erythia and turned away, walking back to where the pups lay against the wall. She gathered them into her arms, ignoring her nakedness, her exhaustion, the blood covering her skin. All that mattered were these two tiny lives that had somehow become her entire world in the space of one night. Actorian stood beside her, barely upright but standing. His eyes held something she couldn't name. Awe, maybe, or understanding. The throne room doors burst open. The remaining council members, roused by the chaos, flooded inside. 12 old wolves, faces lined with authority and suspicion, led by High Elder Theron. "What is the meaning of this?" Theron's voice boomed. "We heard reports of fighting, of treason, of—" He stopped, taking in the scene. Erythia on her knees, unconscious guards. The destroyed throne room, and Thalea, naked and blood-covered, holding 2 pups against her chest. "Explain. Now." Actorian straightened despite his wounds. "The lunar Erythia orchestrated a coup. She attempted to murder me, executed several loyal guards, and planned to sacrifice these pups in a blood ritual to steal their prophetic power." "Lies." Erythia struggled to her feet. "He's trying to cover his own crimes. Those pups are cursed, born of forbidden bloodline. And that Omega is Helicon. She should be executed on sight." "Is she Helican?" Theron's eyes fixed on Thalea. "Yes." Thalea didn't flinch. "My bloodline was sealed to protect me. Tonight it awakened. Then by ancient law you should be executed." "By ancient law," Actorian interrupted. "Helican wolves who serve the crown are granted protection. And this Omega has done nothing but save lives tonight, including mine, including these pups. The pups that the prophecy claims are cursed." Theron stepped closer. "Show me." Thalea hesitated, then shifted the pups so moonlight from the broken ceiling fell across their skin. The runes appeared instantly, glowing silver blue, forming the same images as before. The burning throne room, the woman with light in her hands, and on their forearms, clear and undeniable, Thalea's face. The council members gasped. Even Theron stumbled back. "The prophecy," someone whispered. "It's real." "It proves nothing." Erythia's voice was shrill. "Prophecies can be manipulated. Those marks are—" A clear sign that the pups have chosen their lunar. Actorian's voice cut through her protests. Not you, Erythia. Her. He gestured at Thalia. The prophecy marks only appear in the presence of true lunar. You never saw them because you were never meant to rule. This is insane. She's a rejected Omega. She's Helicon bloodline. She saved my life. She brought these pups back from death. She faced your army and won. Actorion took Thalia's hand. His palm was still bloody, but his grip was firm. And she will be my lunar queen. The throne room went silent. Thalia stared at him, mind reeling. What? The prophecy chose you. The pups recognize you. And he paused, something raw in his eyes. I trust you with my life. With their lives. That's more than I can say for anyone else in this room. But I'm no one. I don't know how to be lunar. I don't even know how to control what I am. Neither did I when I became king. His lips quirked in something almost like a smile. We'll figure it out together. Theron cleared his throat. This is highly irregular. So is a false lunar staging a coup and trying to murder the Alpha King. Actorion didn't look away from Thalia. The old laws state that in times of succession crisis, the prophecy marks take precedence over all other claims. The pups have chosen. The crown recognizes it. All that remains is her acceptance. Every eye in the room turned to Thalia. She looked down at the pups in her arms. They'd stopped crying. Their tiny faces were peaceful, pressed against her skin, trusting her completely, depending on her absolutely. She thought of her grandmother, burned for being Helicon, of her family, executed for harboring her, of 20 years of being invisible, worthless, something to be discarded. And then she thought of tonight, of choosing to help when she could have run, of pulling arrows from a dying king, of fighting for lives that weren't hers but had become hers anyway. She lifted her head and met Theron's gaze. I am no one's lunar by choice. Her voice was steady now, clear, unbreakable. But I will not let innocent lives be destroyed because you're afraid of change. I will not let these pups be used as weapons, and I will not bow to a throne built on lies and murder. She shifted the pups slightly, their warm weight grounding her. So if accepting means I can protect them, if it means I can stop this madness, then yes, I accept. The throne room exploded into argument, half the council shouting protests, the other half demanding order. Erythia screaming accusations, guards uncertain whether to attack or defend. Actorion ignored them all. He shrugged off his torn cloak, the fabric heavy with his blood and pack insignia, and draped it over Thalia's shoulders. The weight of it settled like destiny. Then by the old laws, by prophecy, and by my will as Alpha King, I name you Thalia Cori, Lunar Queen of Lycaon, and anyone who challenges that claim challenges me directly. The arguing stopped. Slowly, reluctantly, the council members who'd been protesting dropped to one knee. Then the guards, then finally Theron himself. Only Erythia remained standing, her face twisted with rage. This isn't over. You can't just... Take her to the cells. Actorion's voice was cold. She'll be tried for treason at the next full moon. Until then, she doesn't speak. She doesn't advise. She doesn't breathe without my permission. 4 guards, ones who'd remained loyal, seized Erythia. She fought and screamed as they dragged her away, her threats echoing through the halls until a door slammed shut. Silence fell. Thalia stood in the center of the throne room, wearing a blood-soaked cloak, holding two pups who weren't hers by birth, but had become hers by choice. Around her, the council remained kneeling, waiting for her to speak, to lead, to be what they needed. She had no idea how to be a lunar queen, no training, no bloodline claim, no right to stand here except for one truth. She'd refused to let innocence die. And somehow, impossibly, that had been enough. Dawn light broke through the shattered ceiling, turning the throne room golden. The pups stirred in her arms, making soft sounds, healthy and alive. Actorian stood beside her, his hand finding hers again. Ready? No. She looked at him, at the council, at the massive throne, waiting at the far end of the hall. But I'll do it anyway. That's all being lunar is, doing the impossible because someone has to. Together they walked toward the throne, not to sit on it, not yet, but to stand before it, side by side, and face whatever came next. The rejected Omega and the wounded king. The sealed bloodline awakened. The prophecy fulfilled not through destiny alone, but through choice. And as the sun rose over Lycaon, Thalia finally understood what her grandmother had meant all those years ago. You are not weak, you are caged, and cages can be broken. She was no longer invisible, no longer worthless, no longer afraid. She was free.